All right, welcome back to the show. Today we have Tully Hannan with Cubby Storage Software Solutions, and we'll get into that. But definitely want to talk his story. I know a little bit about his backstory, and it's definitely interesting. So, Tully, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Good to be here, John.
Yeah, appreciate you coming. We definitely want to learn more about Cubby, what's going on, what it is, where it's going, everything. But I know you have a fascinating story. So let's kind of start back, maybe high school. I know you were a distance runner, so maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, happy to. So probably not too dissimilar from a lot of folks in high school. You're trying to figure out what you're good at, what you're not. Turns out hand-eye coordination was not my strong suit. So when I got cut from the soccer team, I was looking for something else. And the cross-country coach tapped me on the shoulder. He's like, hey, you played midfielder, heard good things, played the whole entire game. Why don't you give us a go? I was like, all right. So I went out and I think coach probably had a massive impact on, getting me to pursue it seriously. Major John Bergalt, based out of Avon Old Farms in Connecticut. But yeah, I really found a passion for it. I think first race, I was, second on the team or third on the team. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, let's see what happens when I start training. So I kept after it. I caught the bug. I read all of the books, started going online, following blog posts, just doing the little things, right? Showing up each morning a little bit earlier. And there was this mantra across the team, like, you got to do the work when no one else is willing to. So I got out there, and, the next season when I came back, I started winning pretty much every race that I got into. And that was addicting, right? Like, I just wanted to keep after it. And that led me to kind of get outside of just the school and start thinking about, all right, do I want to do this in college? Is there a potential to, take this a little bit further after that? So was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to run in college, did well, was a multi-time All-American in cross country. More importantly, just was part of a pretty amazing team. And yeah, after my junior year, 2016 was rapidly approaching. I deferred from college. I wanted to go and give the Olympic trials in the marathon a shot. So I moved to Flagstaff, Arizona, met a great group of people out there. And unfortunately, while I was out there, I ended up tearing my Achilles, which is a little bit of a setback. And, for a large part of my life, my entire identity was based off of being a runner, right? So where do you go from there? But that offered a lot of life lessons. And fortunately, as my mom always reminded me, you're so much more than a runner. There's so much more that you bring to the table. And I had a great support system in place and found other hobbies. And in that same kind of journey, in that vein, I've been fortunate enough to live vicariously through my sister. She went on to compete at the Olympic trials in the marathon. She's about to go and do a 350-mile race across the Atacama Desert in Chile, which is, I couldn't be prouder. So.
That's awesome. So for context, high school, you ran 5Ks, right?
Correct. Yes.
What was your PR?
High school, I was 15:04.
Which is absolutely flying.
Yeah.
That's 3.1 miles. I ran cross country. Well, I don't even want to say ran cross country. I was on the team, probably for the girls. And my excuse was to get in shape for basketball, which that wasn't the case. But my best was like low 19s. So you were done. You were back to the bus by the time I even finished.
Definitely was beginning cool down. No, most likely I was cheering on teammates, but
yeah. Thanks for rubbing that in. But no, you were absolutely flying. So when we talk about like a high level runner, you were a high level runner. What'd you guys run in college? How long distance?
Yeah, typical cross country race was 8K. Okay. Championship would sometimes be 10K. So that's about 5 miles exactly, 8K.
And what was your PR there?
I think it was like a 24:03. Yeah.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And then did you run professionally? Is that right?
Didn't end up actually having a chance. That's kind of where the, tearing the Achilles came in.
Okay.
But I did have a chance to, go work and train with groups like the Northern Arizona Elite, that's sponsored by Hoka, and the groups out there. So definitely got some exposure.
Yeah. So obviously you were an elite runner. I'm sure it took dedication. What else do you think? And I want to get into identity. And we had lunch a few months ago and we kind of talked about that. But what do you think? What do you think made you run that fast for long distance? Like, what was it? Not only did you enjoy it, but why were you better than others?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, like, just quickly reflecting back, looking back, you hear about this, from time to time in every sport. You hit a flow state, right? Or you're heating up, right? And you just get these kind of little moments that make the entire experience worth it. And for me, that was a runner's high, right? There would be certain times, whether I was training, whether I was in a race, where you just kind of get to leave the body in a way, and look back, and you're just kind of like observing yourself and you're floating. And I found that extremely addicting. So even though, like, it was pretty grueling on a daily basis, and there were definitely times where I wanted to quit, I think the excitement of running and competing was definitely a driving force. Yeah.
So you talk flow state, which is interesting because I did not get that same feeling with running. Basically, you were in the zone, right? And you just, in a way, there was something in you that was it was natural.
Yeah. I think there's a book, the Boys in the Boat, and they talk about kind of, granted, there's a number of individuals who are rowing in sync together, but also in running, you're just kind of so in tune with your body, that everything just seems to click, and it's totally addicting.
Yeah, that's awesome. And well, this isn't about me, but what's interesting, back to sports. I'll try to keep this story short. I played sports growing up, mostly basketball. But last night I was talking to my son's soccer coach, who my son is 7. And I see a lot of my son in me, and obviously daughter too. But when it comes to sports, my son is very, and maybe one day he'll listen to this podcast and be like, "Dad, why'd you tell everybody about this?" But he's very passive and afraid to make mistakes. And it's funny because I asked the coach, I was like, what do you think? You've coached all levels. What do you think we can do to help? And he started bringing up being overstimulated, right? So at home, when it's just me and my son playing, like, he's aggressive, he doesn't care. Obviously, he's comfortable with me, but the coach brought up overstimulation, and it like instantly hit me. And I'm like, that was my problem, especially with basketball. You talk about flow state. I remember being, and even to this day, like, if it's a pickup game, I feel more in a flow state. I can get into the groove, into my rhythm, a lot easier. When the lights came on and I was in front of a crowd and people, not that I was thinking about it, but it instantly, like, I froze up, and I was a shell of myself, which I see in my son. So it's interesting that you bring up flow state. There's something with me, and I'm more of an introvert. I think it's all related, to where it almost, it's hard for me, like a group of 10 people, there's no flow state whatsoever for me. It's very hard for me I'm in a shell, and it's just like nothing's going on in my head. I just blank out. So it's interesting. I don't know. It kind of related, kind of not. Any thoughts there?
No, definitely. I think when you said that, like, nerves definitely play a role with running as well. Not only just in a team sport. I think one thing that really helped me was visualization. So the day before, especially a lot of these big races, I would go out, I'd jog the course, I'd have the meeting with the team. I'd know exactly who my competitors were. I'd know their strengths, right? Like, this guy really strong on the second half. I might have to create some separation because there's this idea of out of sight, out of mind. But I just remember in high school, the night before a big race, not only would I do some breathing exercises, but I would walk through every single step. I'd walk through the warm up. I'd close my eyes and I'd be like, okay, you're going to take a left here. This is an opportunity to create some separation. This is where the crowds are going to go. It's going to be quiet. It's just going to be, the sound of footsteps, and then, you would kind of be able to execute because everything was familiar. I found that to work, to be extremely effective, because it prepares you, right? I think it also helps, before any big speech or any big day, to kind of expect what's going to come, embrace those nerves, know that they're going to be there, but it doesn't actually change what's about the outcome. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Maybe instead of sending my son to a sports psychologist, we'll just send him to you and you can help him visualize. So after that, let's talk identity before we get into that. So obviously it sounds like your mom kind of helped in making sure you knew you weren't just a runner, but what was that transition like?
Yeah, it was hard, man. I didn't really have an understanding of what depression was until, because you realize there's so many different factors. Yes, running can be very much an individual sport, but coming from a college team or going and being on in a running group, you're talking more often than not for an hour to two a day, right? That's your social circle. Then you go and throw, graduating college and going and starting a new job. Yes, you're going to be engaging with people on a daily basis and coworkers, but it's not quite the same to that extent. So a lot of it was going out and finding other outlets of exercise. So for me, that ended up being cycling, and ultimately, a little bit of CrossFit, a little bit of just hitting the gym with friends. I think you forget, when you're doing a sport for 2-3 hours a day, right, that you have to fill that time, and then also your body's kind of craving it. It's like you crave sugar. It's like you crave exercise. So
I was just going to ask that. Do you think, and obviously, I went through a similar transition, it was probably longer, but do you think we're so used to being physical and doing physical exercises that it's just cut off, and some of that depression probably comes from just the physical, right?
Absolutely. Your body is it's craving it. And you don't have the stimuli, and running, I'm sure just like basketball, it is a escape, right? And if you can label it as such and identify it as being a healthy part of who you are, taking that away, you don't really have the same coping mechanism. So you have to find that in different places, but you have to be aware that you need it. And I think it took me a long time to kind of figure it out and not even be angry, right? Because there's this kind of, I wasn't getting the release that I needed. So
yeah, it's funny. That's all good stuff. It's funny because we go through school, and I mean, most of us do something physical, even if it's just gym class, at least through 8th grade, right? And probably when we're happiest in our lives, and then all of a sudden, at some point, we stop exercising, and we wonder why there's so many, I guess, negative changes. It's pretty simple. And I've been talking about Dan Martell for a while, but he says something. What is it? Exhaust the body, tame the mind. It makes sense, right? We just, for whatever reason, at some point in our lives, we just stop exercising, and there's probably a lot of negatives that come to that, and a lot of it's mental.
Yeah, I was talking about this with a buddy. I was, out on the West Coast in LA, and we were doing a really long, hard bike ride. I think we were doing 60, 70 miles, and we're just talking about this mindset of my body's aching in certain ways. But listen, age is a number. If you're continuing to be active and you show up, right, and you're not finding an excuse to sit on the couch, the body's an amazing structure. It can do so much and push so far beyond your wildest dreams. But yeah, you got to tame the mind. You got to be disciplined. You got to show up. And I think showing up in life is probably one of the hardest but most important aspects. So,
yep, 100%. No, this is awesome. Yeah, it's and I noticed too when the days that I have more of a rigorous exercise, like the small things that would bother me normally, not even on my radar. Right? It's just my body doesn't need it, knows it doesn't need it, and it's not a big deal. No, it's awesome stuff. So after running, sounds like you did some cycling, some CrossFit. Where at from there?
Yeah, I live in New York City now. I have really started picking back up cycling again. So I do probably about 2 to 2.5 hours every morning. So I'm up at 5:30, out the door, meet up with a bunch of different friend groups in Central Park. We'll do laps, and it's I think that, to talk about flow state, I also think that just like adult play is so important, right? Like you stop playing tag after a certain period of time, you stop playing hide and seek, maybe you start giving up video games, right? But those are all social, more often than not, right? Like social cues, and you're getting dopamine releases. And so what I've found, at least through cycling in the city, is I get that again, right? Like we're going to go and do what we call like a hot lap, which is all out. And you got to be really strategic because you're drafting off of somebody so that you can beat them up the hill and then, create a degree of separation on the descent. And then you all meet up on that next lap and you kind of regroup and you shoot the shit. And you're like, wow, that was amazing. And some days you're going to win, some days you're going to lose. But it kind of reminds me, and like as I've been doing some reflection, I'm like, man, that felt like tag. Or God, like when you see animals in nature going out and playing and roughhousing, like that's the closest thing that I get. So
yeah,
I imagine you probably get a lot of that in basketball when you're, when you lead a charge. It's not malicious,
no,
right? It's the game.
It's the game, yeah. No, that's absolutely awesome. Well, and I was telling somebody the other day that there are definitely days because I still play basketball. There are days where I probably need to get more aggression out, and it's probably something similar to where if I hit like a game winner or some guy's talking trash and I'm just like light them up for 3 or 4 plays in a row, then I start talking trash. Like there's something that is in us that I think we need to let out, whether that's sports related or not. I don't know. But afterwards, I'm like, after the game, it's like we're bumping fists. We're best friends after that. But it's, I don't know. There's something competitive. Like you said, just adult play. I've never heard it like that, but we need it.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't found a better word for it, but it feels like, I don't know. Yeah. Like play is something that we are so familiar with growing up. And then all of a sudden, like you don't play anymore. You play with your kids.
Yep.
Right. Play with your dog. So,
yep. No, that's awesome stuff, man. That's awesome. So, you're at Cubby now. If we miss anything, let me know, but you're at Cubby. kind of explain what Cubby is and what you guys are doing.
Yeah, definitely. So Cubby is a facility management software. It has a bunch of different names, right? It could be a property management software, but we are focused specifically on the self-storage industry. And what we offer is a single one-stop shop for all of your needs. So that includes website, revenue management, operations, call center management, reporting, pretty much everything that you could think of. But yeah, we're a newer player in the space, founded in January of 2022. It's been a fun ride so far.
Yeah. So, and I love the stuff we talked about before, more of the mental stuff, and I want to kind of tie in some things too, with what you're doing, but obviously we want to learn more about Cubby. So all the stuff, the flow state, the visualization, how do you carry those things over to Cubby?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think when you're building a business, and Cubby is very much a startup, a lot of those kind of similar traits apply. Vision, showing up, being dedicated. You have to adapt, right? You don't know what product is necessarily going to resonate, what's going to be a blocker, and kind of getting into a flow state of knowing what has to be done on a day-to-day basis, and then continuing to explore probably translates the best. So always being curious, consistently taking feedback, but never necessarily straying from like the core aspects, right? Like following up, being organized.
Yeah, for sure. What differentiates Cubby from? We'll start with the major players. Well, maybe we can differentiate from the major players and then some of the smaller groups too.
Yeah. So major players in the space, I think one of the biggest things that we differentiate is like we don't have a self-storage background, right? Like our entire team comes from the software industry, right? And what we did is we sat down with folks like yourself. We sat down with very large operators and we asked, hey, listen, what works? What doesn't work? What needs to be built? That's when we got to get to work, right? We got to take those expertise, those insights, and then apply them. And that means that we build about 5 to 9 new features every 6 weeks. I think when we originally talked like a year ago, I was essentially showcasing Cubby off of a slide deck. And today, like we're at parity with pretty much every other player in the market. And I think that's a testament, right, to not missing a step, but also like delivering what people wanted. So when you ask the question, going back to how do we differentiate, is like we're a software company that can help owners from a consolidation standpoint of individual features as well as price consolidation. So you're in a one-stop shop, which is really nice.
And obviously it's self-storage, but what's your ideal target market?
Ideal target market. So our like ideal customer profile is generally an operator. Like I would say like our ideal at this moment in time would be an operator that has, a number of, let's say, smaller facilities. And by smaller, I mean ranging from 100 to, let's call it 200 units, that is currently feeling a lot of pain with trying to manage 5+ facilities on a single system, and has to have 4 window panes open and can't get accurate reporting and doesn't really know what conversions are looking like. So those generally tend to be a pretty good fit.
Yeah. So probably the more sophisticated mom and pops. And obviously, if you got one facility, it's going to work. If you've got 20 facilities, it's probably going to work. But probably more sophisticated mom and pops, right?
Yeah, I would say more sophisticated mom and pops is a perfect representation of our ideal customer profile at this time.
Yeah. Let's talk some features that most other softwares don't have. And I don't know how much you know about other softwares, so maybe we'll have to do some digging here. But I do know that your marketing and how you track marketing is way different from anything else I've seen. So I'll talk a little bit about that.
Totally. Appreciate you highlighting that. I think a lot of our design team and product team have come over from Shopify. Mm-hmm. And when we look at self-storage kind of from a 30,000 foot view and the tenant experience, it's just broken, right? People have very low attention spans. They want it to be transactional. Self-storage, more often than not, is not the happiest day. So I'm looking to offload my stuff. I'm looking to move on with my day. I'm looking to get the information that's necessary for me to move my things. And anything that we do to kind of impede that, gives us an opportunity to turn people away. I mean, it's proven 60% of tenants are going to rent from the first website that they go to. If you're asking for my driver's license, if you're asking me for, my social security or to put in alternate contacts, just take a step back and think about it. It's not very welcoming. So what we really try and focus on is, hey, when an individual clicks on a unit, can we give them an opportunity to pick a more premium unit, in which case, right, both the operator as well as the prospective tenant benefit, and there's an upsell there. But then when they get to the next screen, let's just ask their phone number, their email, and their move-in date, and let's complete the transaction. Everything else, so all the additional contact information, emergency details, can be collected after the fact. And so Cubby's unique in that we're the only facility management software that allows you to capture the lead info in real time, complete the transaction, and then in order to gain access to the facility, you have to complete the lease agreement. So I think that's probably the biggest differentiator that a lot of people have drawn a lot of people to Cubby.
Yeah, so easier to rent from the website, more user-friendly. When it comes to owners and tracking where their marketing dollars go, talk a little bit about that. I know that's different too.
Yeah, no, and coming from a world, I used to work at HubSpot and Twilio doing what's known as a customer data platform, but essentially just like tracking the buyer's journey. Not only can we go in and really look at like the lifetime value through your different marketing channels or your marketing campaigns, but we can go down to the individual clicks and we can show you, hey, this is where an individual click rent. This is when they upsold, to which, like how much did they upsell? So how well are our promotions working when we're doing like a value pricing or good, better, best? When they get to the form fields, how often are they filling out the form fields? If they abandon their cart, we're pinging the owner or the manager or the virtual assistant, notifying them to reach out to that individual. And then we can contract to them becoming a paying customer. And that's just kind of like the tip of the spear, right? That's getting them in the door. But when you start to expand and you look at the analytics behind that, we can start to see trends, right? So where are these people coming in from? Are they coming from a zip code that we never really thought? Where are the units that they typically are interested in? Is there additional upsell opportunity that we can do, or speeding up the conversion opportunity? So yeah, from a website perspective, we can do a really thorough job of explaining that buyer's journey.
Yeah, which is absolutely awesome. The obviously tracking for myself and owners, tracking where you're spending your advertising and what's being effective is huge. And then also knowing where your renters are coming from, whether they're by zip code, whatever it is. I have no idea where my renters are coming. I mean, I have an idea for most of them, but not a specific area. So that's all huge. Talk a little bit about reporting. Is that different? Are there any, reporting reports that are better or different than what you've seen?
Yeah, totally. So it really depends upon the facility management software that you're using. But I think most folks are constantly diving into their management summary, their occupancy statistics, right? And what we try and do is go a little bit of a layer deeper. So we have business intelligence reporting, and that's just like a fancy word for saying we've got a ton to display. So every single data point that exists inside of Cubby, we can drill down on. And that's really useful for kind of growth-minded operators who are looking to expand their portfolio. They might need to go in and look at where concessions are being given, how frequently, what's the lead time, right, of an abandoned cart to a manager actually picking up the phone and calling that individual. There's a ton of statistics that show that, if you wait longer than a minute after somebody's abandoned their cart to engage with them, there's probably about a 90% drop off of you getting that person back on the phone. So when that's a $200 a month lead, let's say average person stays for 10 months, that's $2,000 walking out the door that was effectively ready to hand you their credit card. Yep. So that, like, just being able to fill that gap and present that knowledge to operators has been huge.
Yeah, that is huge. That's I know, and I'll say the names. I don't think I can get canceled on the show. Easy Storage Solutions, they would send an email to you if someone if they made an account, so you could go look at it, right, and see if they actually rented from you, but you had to do some work there. Now I'm with storage. I have no idea if there's any type of account made, abandoned cart. I have no idea. And I know for a fact that even with easy storage solutions, I would say, man, I'd have probably 3 to 5 people a month that would make an account and never rent. We'd try to follow up on them, but it wasn't clean. So that's absolutely huge. What I know we've talked before about AI. What integrations do you have now maybe coming in the future?
Yeah, I think, AI, when used appropriately, can be such an incredibly powerful tool. I think where the first glimpse of where you'll get that with Cubby is really on the revenue management side of things. So let's use an example. You want to do a tenant rate increase across your 12 properties, right? And you want to take as many factors into account. Maybe you have a schedule, so maybe you're on a 12-6-6 for your rent raise. Right now, right, you wouldn't be taking into account, hey, competitor, let's say a REIT or maybe a more sophisticated operator is dropping their rates and they're offering 2 free months. We're about to roll out that rate increase for existing tenants. Okay, well, the market is getting a little bit more competitive. Maybe we should flag that. Well, let's take it a step further. When we go down to an individual tenant, right, we're going to want to look at how many interactions or phone calls have they made to our property? How frequently do they enter the facility? Are they paying with an Amex Platinum? Are they paying with do they live 10 miles away or 2 miles away? So AI, right, can go in, parse all that data, and then create a summary for you that would suggest, hey, let's hold off on doing this rate increase now. There's a lot of factors that we're seeing that would note that they're going to have a 20-30% higher increase of moving out if you do this. So that's probably like the first place that you're really going to start to see it. And then we do that same kind of algorithm and calculation and summary of an explanation, which is, again, that AI portion with your standard rate adjustments. So if we notice that a new website pops up from your competitor standpoint, how can we feed that in and alert you? If a new competitor comes in the market and they're half your costs, do we need to be mindful of that? If your vacancy is low, okay, then we're probably going to be forced to compete with that individual. If your vacancy is high and economic occupancy is high, well, let's not worry or factor that in quite as much. So there's a lot of things that you as an owner operator probably spend a lot of time thinking about, like weighing decisions, and that is an opportunity for AI to step in and provide a kind of like a summary and explanation so that you can be like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Like, let's hold off.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's mind blowing. I mean, that's stuff that obviously has not been thought of or done, and excited to see that. You guys have call center integrations, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So as of today, we have a handful of call center integrations, and we've recently released a call center management tool. So you can do inbound, outbound calling, call recording, call transcription. Another point where we use AI so that we can block out PCI compliant information. You can set up really advanced phone trees through pretty much any VoIP provider that you would like. And then kind of iterations upon that will be, doing call grading, sentiment analysis, really robust reporting, right? So that you can provide real-time coaching feedback, whether it's to a manager who's in the store or a group of virtual agents who, if you're doing like a hub and spoke model. So that'll probably be something that we continue to expand and tackle more of in 2025. But the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive so far.
Yeah. Well, and to hit on what you said before, you guys are doing, would you say 5 to 9 new features every 6 weeks? Yeah. You guys are always upgrading, updating. Where are you? How are you getting those ideas? Are you polling current owners? Are you guys waiting for feedback and then taking the top 6 things and rolling those out, or how do you decide?
Yeah, so we've got a really solid system internally. So what we do is every single piece of feedback that we hear from our customers is kind of aggregated. Again, another use case of AI, but it essentially organizes similar feedback And then we categorize that in a tool called Linear. And then we roll that out between our product team that then filters that up between our design and our engineering team. They get approved, they get stack ranked based off of the immediate impact that it has on our current customer base. And then we also have to look, as we continue to go up market, what features are going to be absolute requirements to win some of those larger owners and operators. So it's a balanced approach, right? It's the jobs that need to be done today, as well as how do we create a truly differentiated experience. So it's definitely a learning. I would say that we've been very fortunate to not have missed, because 6 weeks, 5 to 9 new features. If you're building the wrong stuff, that's a lot of resources. If people aren't taking advantage of it. So
yeah, no, it's cool. And full disclosure, I am with storage right now, but I am switching over. I'm waiting on one small update. That's probably I'm probably one of few people that want that update. And again, there's a workaround for it, but I'm just picky and being a pain. But yeah, you guys, everything I've heard, everything's been great. Customer support, I heard, is off the charts, which you don't get.
Yeah, shout out to Adam Badofsky and Brikenna.
Yeah, you don't get support at any other, from what I've seen, any other. In fact, if you get a response, that's a great thing. But true support, you don't really get anywhere else. So what I miss, I know obviously we can't cover everything, and people can always reach out to you if they want a demo or find out more. But what I missed that you'd like to hit on?
I think we covered probably the most salient kind of topics, right? The revenue management, how can we improve websites? Reporting is extremely important, right? Like I think there's a saying, right? Like data is the new oil. So if you can figure out how to work to your advantage, you're gonna be pretty rich. And whether you're a syndicate, whether you're looking for a long-term hold, like that at the end of the day is going to inform how you make your decisions, how you tell your story. So I'm always a proponent of like clean data in means clean data out. So
yeah. Yep. And obviously growing. So how long have you guys been around?
Yeah, so we were January 2022. I think This time last year we had 10 live individual customers, and we're up to 200. So in a year, crazy. That's
how many facilities is that?
500? Yeah, it's just over 1,000.
1,000?
Yeah.
So 200 customers and over 1,000 facilities.
Yep. We've got a huge customer audience. We've gotten so much positive feedback, and yeah, it's been fun.
It's awesome. Yeah, and I'm excited to see what else you can do. Obviously, because I'm gonna be a customer soon. It's awesome to see what you guys are doing. You guys are truly putting the storage owners' opinions first, which is, you don't see that from really any other business, let alone storage software. So it's absolutely awesome. Got 3 basically podcast questions that I always ask. What's one thing you're better at than everybody else? I enjoy this question because I can usually answer it for the guests. But I like to hear what they say.
I think I'm a pretty I'm a pretty strong empath. So I tend to have a really strong connection and understanding where people are at and being sensitive and mindful to, their needs, their space. And I think that's a strength. So I lean into that. I think I do that better than most.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, especially in your role, it's definitely a great quality to have. I was going to say dedication. Obviously, just physically the stuff that you do and have done, you have to be completely dedicated to do that stuff.
Yeah, a little bit crazy, but yeah.
Yeah, a little crazy, but good crazy.
Yeah.
What's next for you?
What's next for me? I mean, I'm bleeding Cubby, so I think that's going to be my focus over the next couple of years from a work perspective. I think next for me from a physical challenge, I'm going to be going supporting my sister while she does that 350-mile race across the Atacama Desert. Can't wait to be a support system for her physically. For myself, I'm I want to get into doing some serious racing in the spring for cycling, and get that competitive edge, do some crit races, bump elbow to elbow with some folks in the park.
That's awesome, man. You know Chris Butler, right?
Yeah, Chris Butler. I was just talking about cycling.
He's a professional racer, bike racer.
Yeah, he's filthy. I've been kind of like doing some sneaky stalking online of his records. It's impressive.
Really, I'll have to check that out, because literally all I know is he was a professional. What is it, cyclist? I know he's in Tour de France, those type of things. But yeah, I don't know anything else. So interesting. Obviously, I'm sure people want to reach out, learn more, maybe about you, but I'm sure about Cubby too. Where can they find you?
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me at my email. It's just my first name, Tully, Tully @cubbystorage.com. That's probably the easiest way. They can also hit you up, John. And you can give it. You can give them the show notes too. Yeah, you can give them the 10-4 once we get you on board.
Absolutely. Cool, man. Yeah. Awesome. Well, this is we probably could have made this 2 episodes, because the mindset stuff and the your journey is definitely fascinating to me. It's absolutely awesome to hear. And obviously what you guys are doing at Cubby's great too. But appreciate you coming on, man. And obviously if you guys want to reach out, we'll have his information in the show notes.
Awesome. Thanks, John.
Thank you. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for following, subscribing, and listening to this episode of the Do More podcast, hosted by John Farling. To learn more or ask questions, go to l4investing.com.